What's up, guys? Welcome to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. This is Johnny, and welcome to episode 57 with my buddy Nick Gregoriades.
Hey, Johnny. Thanks for having me.
Hey, is that the first time I ever said your name right?
It's getting better each time.
So Nick's been on the show about a year ago, and he was out here in Chiang Mai just visiting. But life has changed a lot. We both wrote new books. We've both been to a bunch of different countries. And today I wanted to have Nick back on just because he happens to be in town and see what he's been up to, but also give you guys some insights on how he made a killing and really did well with his jiu-jitsu book. So when was the last time we hung out?
Dude, I think it was about a year ago. Yeah. Probably about a year, maybe a little bit less than that.
And at that time, you had the Jiu-Jitsu Brotherhood, which is basically an online community for people who do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but you never actually sold anything on it. You never really monetized it.
I had monetized it to a very small degree. Like I had an affiliate link to some supplements that was nested or embedded within an article that made a few $1,000. And every now and then I'd sell like a specific T-shirt or something like that. But I hadn't really looked at it as a proper viable business until that point.
Why do you think you waited so long? Because how long did you have it, and how many visitors were you having? Kind of before you wrote the book.
The site was already pretty popular before I wrote the book. I was probably getting close to 20K uniques a month.
So that's 20,000 people looking at this website with kind of with nothing to really buy. You're kind of just giving free information. So what made you hold off for so long to actually sell something on there?
I don't really like doing things half-assed. When I do something, I try to do to the best of my ability. And I think subconsciously I knew. The way I describe it to people is you can have ideas to do something. Like you can decide that you can want to be a tennis player, or you can want to be successful, or you can want to do well in any aspect of life. But some people can just dip their toe in and play around and see what happens. And for me, the way I describe it is that I have to flick the switch in my head. I literally have to say, okay, now it's time. And I just, for whatever reasons, whether they were subconscious or whether they were due to the circumstances in my life at the time, I wasn't ready to flick that switch.
So when you did flick that switch, you were out here in Chiang Mai for, was it a month or 2 months, or how long were you actually out
I think
here?
it was a month, yeah.
And do you think just kind of being out here and not having the responsibilities, but also, being surrounded by other people kind of doing the same thing, do you think that's what allowed you to flip that switch?
It definitely pushed me towards the flipping or flicking of the switch. I remember the exact moment I decided to do it. In particular, write this book and sell it was you, Anton, who's been a previous guest of yours is it dropshipping? What's his business?
Dropshipping business. You can go to Anton Method.
Okay. We were sitting on our way to a specific event or festival in a hired bus, a chartered bus, and he told me he was giving me some advice about how to do it or what could be done. And I remember saying to him, that's it, in exactly 6 weeks time, or I gave some arbitrary date. I said, I'm going to have my book on the market for sale. And I think that moment, I would never have reached that moment if I hadn't been around people and having been able to see people who had already done similar things. And the interesting thing is I have a friend here, one of my best friends you just met last night, and it's very interesting and rewarding for me to watch him. He hasn't yet taken the plunge, he hasn't yet flicked the switch, but just watching him around these other people like yourself and other colleagues and friends I have in Chiang Mai, I can see his perspective starting to shift and his perception starting to expand.
Yeah, I definitely think that, when people come out here and they surround themselves with other people who kind of do the same thing, it completely flips every switch in their mind where now they know, well, if everyone else is doing it and it's possible, why can't I do it? And I think that's why a lot of people listen to this podcast is if you don't have access to people like that, even if you live in like Austin or San Francisco or these, hubs where they're supposed to be, these places where people are getting things done, hustling and building businesses, a lot of times they still don't do that. So, and it's not until you get plugged in to kind of the digital nomad scene, which, did you even know that existed a few years ago?
I didn't know it existed to this extent or that it was centered in this part of the world, but obviously I'd read the 4-Hour Lifestyle or 4-Hour Work Week, and I had a vision of what was possible and what I wanted to achieve.
Okay, so there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that are kind of in a similar position as you, where you became really good at a skill, an art. For you, it was teaching jiu-jitsu. Well, first I'm sure it was you just doing jiu-jitsu as a student, as a practitioner, and then it became you doing, teaching it. And the next kind of logical step is to teach it on a wide scale. So instead of teaching it, individually on one-on-one, or even in a group seminar, which might be, 30, 40 people, now you can reach it out to, hundreds or thousands. How many people have bought your book now?
Yeah, like several thousand at this point.
And I've read the book. If you guys are interested in it, it's called, is it Blackbelt Blueprint? Or
the Blackbelt Blueprint.
I'll have a link to it in the show notes. But it's a great book. So if anyone, has even considered doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is the grappling art that you see on UFC or in MMA, and also one of the coolest martial arts out there, highly encourage you to read this book, because it really outlines beginner to professional. And I think that's why I like the book so much. Is I'm pretty much a beginner in jiu-jitsu. I've technically been dabbing in it for a few years, but it's so off and on that I'm still a beginner. I'm still a white belt. But what I liked about it is, even though Nick's been doing it for so long, how many years has it been?
Coming up on maybe 15 now, man.
So I would imagine it's hard to think back 15 years and remember, what would have benefited you in the beginning.
Yeah, that was, it definitely took a lot of planning and recalling and delving deep and trying to remember the stumbling blocks I had along the way. And I think anyone who has most of the people listening to this show, if they're above a certain age, they've probably spent X amount of years in a specific career, and whether they know it or not, they're an expert in something. And I think that's one of the value adds, or one of the ways that you can provide value to people. And we all know that that's how you increase your income. There's an expression, your income is proportional to the number of people you serve. I think it's by Napoleon Hill. And if you're, let's say, a plumber, I'm sure, Johnny, your guests have all, some of them have mentioned this, and I'm sure many of your listeners have heard a similar thing, but just to reiterate here, if you're a plumber, you can only go and work on X number of sites per day and fix X number of toilets. Or even if you're a plastic surgeon, you're limited by your time. But if you have a plastic surgery consultancy and you can hire other people to do the work for you, it frees you up and allows you to multiply your income. You can focus on the grander vision of your business. And that's the beautiful thing about the internet, is that it's the ultimate multiplier. It allows you to take your vision and just push it out to pretty much a limitless size. And it's your job as an expert in whatever you are, and everyone's an expert in something. It's your job to take that expertise and that body of knowledge that you've acquired and condense it and package it and efficiently get it into the hands of as many people as you can. And if you can do that, you can pretty much write your own paycheck. You don't need to write anyone else.
And I 100% agree on that. So me and Larissa were talking about earlier how she now is basically announcing to the world that she wants to be successful, she wants to make money, and she wants, and she's not afraid of saying it anymore. And a lot of people are afraid to charge for their services or the products, even if they are an expert. They're afraid, they're almost afraid to ask for what they're worth. And I'm sure there's a lot of experts out there that, almost don't want to write a book because they're like, well, I don't want to, I don't want to be selling something. I want to just give it out for free. But at the end of the day, that doesn't help anyone because they end up just not doing anything. They might end up either just helping one or two people, or they end up just kind of keeping information in, to the grave. And here's the thing about that is you can put out, a book or an info product, and if it's not good and it's not helping anyone, they will let you know and no one will buy it. And so you don't even have to feel bad, because I guarantee you, if you have a crappy product, if you don't actually give good advice, if you don't actually have something, that's worth the money, the market will self-correct it. The first couple people might buy it, but I guarantee it'll lose steam and it'll just kind of go away. So the fact that people are willing to spend the money on it, especially, an expensive book like yours, it's what, $40? And if they like it enough where they don't ask for a refund, they tell their friends about it, and they post it on Facebook or on Twitter or on jiu-jitsu forums. That in itself proves that was well worth $40 to them.
Interesting.
And that's why I really believe that it's almost our duty and our job to make these products and to sell, and not to be afraid of it.
I agree with you completely. I just find that I've been burnt before in the past buying a digital product, which I still remember it very vividly. It was when I was still a beginner in jiu-jitsu, and this guy he'd advertised a specific program. He'd used all of the different formulas of copywriting and sales pages and everything, and he had made it out to be like the second coming that would massively improve, and he'd overhyped it basically. And I bought this product, which was pretty expensive. I was a student at the time. I didn't really have money to waste and stuff like this, but I spent quite a bit of money on it. And it arrived, and it was total crap. It was absolute crap. It was a seminar that he had taught, and he got some guy to film it with like a handy cam. It wasn't planned or anything like that. And then he just chopped that up as a video and claimed it was this new video. Now, dude, if you want to sell stuff online and you want people to buy it and you want people to refer you to their friends, it has to be a high quality product. You have to keep asking your question, is this a high quality product? Because you can sell crap only once or maybe twice, and then people get wise and you're burned forever.
I mean, I bet you, I don't know who that guy is, but I bet you he's not successful now, because he might have sold a couple in the beginning, burnt people, and if they didn't ask for a refund, or if he didn't have an easy refund policy, I guarantee you, that success was very short-lived.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he may be in fact, I know he's doing reasonably well now, but the thing is, I know he could do so much better, and he would be doing so much better because I would have bought more of his products. And I definitely will never buy a product again from him, even though I get his emails every now and then, and some of his stuff looks kind of interesting. I've just been burnt, and I'm just not going to do it again. And why? I mean, do you really feel good about yourself putting out stuff that you know isn't your best just to make a quick buck? Like, I don't think that sends out a good energy in any way, and I don't want to be that kind of person.
Well, the people actually do feel bad for are the people that you mentioned that are just getting started and don't actually know that much about whatever their craft is. And it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. It can be about, really anything. And they might not know enough to even realize it's a bad, crappy product.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the scary part. And that's why, any kind of selling things online or internet marketing gets a bad rap, is because a lot of people could hire someone to make a great sales page or a beautiful looking website, and the packaging can be great. And people just assume, people kind of almost get tricked into buying it. But I honestly think that people are tricking themselves. I honestly think that when people fall for a lot of the marketing, like the 10-second abs or the 7-minute abs, they kind of deep down know inside, hey, it's probably not going to work, but I'm willing to spend the money to find out, and it's tough, it really is tough. There's an example, there's a guy, I'm not going to mention his name, but he works out of the same co-working space as me, and he asked me for advice on his website, on his marketing and his sales copy. And he's like, basically saying, hey, why isn't anyone buying my product? Should I move this video here? Is it too salesy? And I said to him, oh, you know what? I don't see anything on here that says like a case study or, any information about how successful you were with it. And I said, why don't you write that? And he said, oh, because I've never done it before. And there was the problem, is he's selling a service that he personally has not been successful with. So he's spending all this time and energy making the website nicer and making the sales and marketing better. But at the end of the day, if he hasn't done it himself and he hasn't been successful with it himself, I really doubt that's going to be very long-lived.
Yeah, and you also have to ask what place is he creating this product from? Because I know there are some very popular products, I won't mention names, but let's just say they have the word abs in the title, where the guy is making literally 7 figures a month. And ultimately, it is a total garbage product. It's literally just like a PDF of like 10 pages with a few links in it saying, with a few dietary tweaks and maybe a couple of exercises, whatever it is. And sure, you can trick people. You can make a lot of money. You can become really wealthy tricking people or using psychological triggers in your marketing, copy, and everything. And I'm not saying there's no place for good quality copywriting and good marketing, but I think the question you always have to ask is, what is the value that you're providing, and what place is that coming from? Is it coming from your desire to share what you've learned and bring more good energy into the world? Or is it built on like a hollow foundation of, I just want to get rich quick? And both of these paths can lead to success, but I know which one I prefer, and I know which one allows me to look at myself in the mirror every day.
I know that there are, people that are successful in their life taking the shortcuts. But for me personally, every time I've taken a shortcut, it's ended up being 10 times longer than it should have been. If I had just decided, hey, maybe I should actually eat healthy and actually exercise consistently. If I started that when I was 18, I would have been in shape my whole life. But I kept looking for shortcuts. I was the guy that wanted to do the 6-minute abs, and I was like, I was the one doing these crazy crash diets. I was the one looking for supplements that, can change my physique overnight. And because of that, it took me a long, long time to actually get in shape. And I think now that I'm finally actually in shape, I realized, there was no shortcut. I should have just followed almost anything. So
I think there's a very big difference between shortcuts and leverage points. I mean, what I ultimately came to learn was that anything you want to do properly is going to require hard work. And if you do find some leverage points or shortcuts, they're just going to allow you to do the hard work, or to do more hard work. So you could do 5 different things a day instead of 1 different thing a day. And that's the way I look at it now, is I want to be as efficient as possible. And I think a lot of our products, in fact, like that's what my Blackbelt Blueprint is about. It's not about saying this is a shortcut to getting good at jiu-jitsu. It's just about saying this is about how to best and most efficiently use your time. It's still going to take time, but this is the quickest and best way to do it.
I actually specifically remember when you were first putting together the site and even the title, and we had sat down and we had talked about what can sell more books. And I remember very specifically you said, I'm not going to put on there that this is a shortcut or this is a get your blue belt in an X amount of years, because it's not realistic for most people. So for those who don't know Nick's story, he was Roger Gracie's first black belt, and Roger Gracie is literally one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the world. So world famous, and for him to give Nick a black belt was a really big deal, especially because most people take how many years on average? Like 8 years to get a black belt? Or more?
It's probably like 8 to 12.
8 to 12 years, and you got yours in how many years?
About 4.5.
In 4.5. So I told Nick, I said, look, you got your black belt from the world's best in 4.5 years. Why don't you title your book "How to Get a Black Belt in 4.5 Years"? And to me, that was great marketing. It tells a great story about Nick, and it's not lying at all because he really did do it. But Nick, is so straight edge. He said, "Look, it's not going to be feasible for most people."
I mean, to be fair, Johnny, in my marketing, what I do is I do use that trigger of showing that it's something special, that it took a little bit shorter than most people. But I don't say get your black belt in 4 years. I say learn how I got my black belt in 4 years, and just showing all the wisdom I acquired and how I did it that quickly. And again, there's no guarantee. I'm pretty certain using what I teach is going to shave years of the amount of time people take to get their black belt, but you're still going to have to work damn hard, man. It's like, but this is an efficient way to do it. And that's for me. I mean, I think you're the same. A lot of the guys in this community that I speak to are, one of my friends the other day, he said he's always looking for little life hacks, ways to get the most efficiency out of his time, out of his money, out of his work. And that's something that really excites me, not shortcuts, efficiency.
I do agree with that. And I think the major thing that people do need is a blueprint. And that's why I think the title of your book is actually perfect. Because if you are following the wrong path, let's say you're following a diet that just completely doesn't work, or if you're following a system that completely doesn't work, then you can put in all the hard work you want and all the years you want, and you still won't get anywhere. So, like, for example, let's say you're following a diet that, like a fruitarian diet, for example. It might sound cool, if you're like, and if it just doesn't work and it's not healthy in the long run, you can follow it to the T and put in all the work, and you're never really going to be healthy if you're just eating, sugary fruits all day and nothing else. And it's kind of the same thing, with business. If you're following, some completely wrong plan, especially from someone who's, let's say, never done it before, and their entire business is basically teaching people something that they don't know, then you can work as hard as you want and you're wasting your time as well. And I think that's why I like it when I personally meet people, or at least I kind of get to know them, through a friend of a friend, or kind of through the grapevine, and that's why I think, these podcasts are great, because you really get to know someone week after week. When you follow someone's blog, you kind of get to know them week after week as well. And that's why, I wrote Life Changes Quick, because I wanted to share that story of everything that has worked for me so far, and includes not only business, but travel, how I got my relationships in order, how I finally got in shape, how I finally found a diet that works for me. And these are things I wanted to share with people, because it took me, 32 years to figure it out. And if someone, hasn't figured it out yet, I want to be able to share that with them.
I agree. One of the things that makes a lot of sense to me is that, you mentioned people can, if they have the wrong theories, they can work as hard as they want, but it's not going to lead to results. But that's the thing about experience, and that's why there is no real shortcut, because you need the experience to figure out which the best theories are, right? And you need that practical application to say, okay, I tried the pescatarian or the vegetarian or the fruitarian or the paleo or whatever, and this is the one that worked for me. And there's no shortcut to that. You have to try all these things. That's life. That's what it's about.
And that's why I like guys like Dave Asprey and Tim Ferriss, is because they tried it with their own bodies and their own money, and then they wrote books about it so everyone else can learn from their experiments. So Dave Asprey, tried every single diet. He got all his blood tests, and Tim Ferriss did as well in his book, Forward Body. And not that, it's going to work for everyone, but at least, you could see what their results were, so which allows you to kind of have a bigger understanding of what's going to work for you.
I think that's one of the reasons that people, the formula for writing a sales page is you first, almost invariably first, introduce yourself and your titles, or what you've done and what you've accomplished. Because, and I think for everyone who's listening and wants to buy a product online, or is interested in buying a product about drop shipping or whatever product it may be, whenever someone's trying to teach you something or claiming to have a solution or claiming to have an answer, they better have some pretty good credentials on how to do that. Because one of my favorite expressions is, you can't take someone somewhere you've never been, and you can't show someone something you've never seen. And I've seen how in my own life, like when I was teaching jiu-jitsu, if I try to teach a technique or something that I didn't really understand fully myself, it would almost always have shitty consequences, and that particular class wouldn't go well. So you need to be discerning when you're buying stuff from people, and when you're learning on this path and you want to get better in anything, like just really investigate the person who's selling something to you and find out how successful they've been. I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things is just to see if they are doing it themselves. One great example is, so anytime you guys want to learn, let's say, autoresponder or email marketing, one of the things that you should do right away is just subscribe to that person's email list. So if they recommend, let's say, Aweber, which is a big, kind of expensive email marketing campaign platform, but you subscribe to the newsletter and they're using MailChimp, then hey, this guy's not,
he's not authentic or congruent.
Yeah, like, why is he telling me to use this if he's using something else?
The thing I find so funny is, as soon as my products start to become successful and sell reasonably well, I get all these guys messaging me saying, I remember the last one, one of the funniest ones was, I've worked with all these clients and I've generated over, I don't know what it was, $6 million in sales for them, or throwing huge numbers around, and I can really improve the sales copy on your page. And the guy wanted X $100 or X $1,000 to completely redo my sales page so it converted better. And the question I wanted to ask him is, look, if you could write this amazing sales page, my product is an affiliate product on Clickbank. Why don't you just write this amazing sales page and use your own affiliate ID and sell my product and sell 10,000 copies of it and make yourself that money? Why are you trying to get money out of me? And I don't think you would have had an answer for that. So I think that's one of the pitfalls of success is sooner or later everyone wants, as the size of your operation and your success grows, it brings with it a whole new level of complexities, like things like that, for example.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So let's talk about how to make these books successful, because you've been very, very successful. If you guys do the math, it's, Nick sold a couple thousand copies of this book, and it's $40 a piece. And it's a digital book, so it's not like you're spending $30 printing it. It literally costs pennies, per book to send out. I mean,
a bit more than that with the Clickbank fees and hosting fees, but the margins are very high. Yeah.
So you've been very successful with it. Do you think it's just because it's really good content and you have, this community that you built up for years, or do you think what do you think the secret sauce is behind it?
I think you've heard that expression, overnight success usually takes about 15 years. Mm-hmm. I think that not only was I working exceptionally hard as a jiu-jitsu teacher and competitor, and had my website up writing articles for many years, and I established a pretty good name for myself in the industry. And, there was a lot, I built off a very solid foundation. I wasn't just some guy who pitched up and said, hey, I'm going to send this book out. Unfortunately, that is the case. I had a lot behind me anyway, and I had those credentials that you mentioned earlier. But also, I worked really hard, Johnny. I worked really hard, not only writing the book, but preparing all the marketing systems, like initiating all the Clickbank stuff, like doing social media. I remember there was a point before the book launched where I didn't have a day off for 8 weeks.
Wow.
Like literally, I did not have a Saturday or Sunday or any day off for 8 weeks solid. So I just worked damn hard, but it was fun. I enjoyed it, and if you ask, is there a secret sauce? Yeah, it's hard work, and it's covering all the bases, and just researching and planning and just working your ass off, basically.
So for those who don't have, 15 years behind them or this audience, I want you guys to know that it's still definitely possible. So as an example, using myself, my first book, 12 Weeks in Thailand, I had a blog that I had been updating for a number of years. So I did have that, but it wasn't very popular. I didn't even have a mailing list because I just never thought to do it. I had maybe 300 likes on Facebook or something. And so I had, it was good that I had something, but I didn't have that much. So it wasn't that I had this massive list to start with. So at the beginning, I had to, basically strum up my own momentum. So if you guys are in the similar position where you have some experience on something that you want to write about, but you don't have this massive list, it's still 100% possible. Mm-hmm.
It is, and I would say the best way to make it happen is to start providing value for free to establish your credibility. So let's say you're a sound engineer and you want to write an ebook on how to get into sound engineering. If you just slap an ebook together and put it online, you could probably get some decent sales. Whereas if you spend a year working on a blog in which you give away really high quality content and make people start to trust you and start generating positive energy around your name and your career, and then decide to do a book, it's going to be far better received. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, one thing that I did for my latest book, Life Changes Quick, is I actually live wrote it on my blog.
Oh, cool.
So instead of writing blog posts, I would write a chapter.
Interesting.
And that way, if someone wanted to just follow along in order, they subscribe to my blog, they can literally read 90% of the book as I write it. And afterwards, you can either keep the posts up there, because a lot of people that like those posts are going to want to read the book anyways. They're going to want to read a proper introduction, and they want to read the edited version that's all kind of intertwined together. Mm-hmm. But also, if they like your story, obviously they want to support you and kind of read the whole thing in one convenient package. Mm-hmm. But that's such an easy way to first give yourself accountability of putting out, let's say, a chapter a week or whatever your goal is. Mm-hmm. But also you can start building an audience, because if nobody's going to read your free blog, nobody's going to buy the book.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But if people love the blog and love the content you're putting out, then hey, this is something that people actually want to read.
Mm-hmm. I agree entirely.
Yeah, so definitely, if you guys have some kind of skill or expertise, or you just even if you just have an interesting story to tell, why not start a blog and and just live write it and see how many people you turn on to that. And if it's enough, finish the book, publish it, and you can literally make enough money to travel the world.
And if you don't have that skill,
if you don't have that skill, then what do you recommend?
Sorry, I had something in my throat. If you don't have that skill, it's your job. I mean, everyone's good at something, whether it be something that you know you're good at or not. It's your job to uncover it and hone it and then share it. I mean, that's the key to everything, in my opinion. It's just when you give value and you give it from a good place, it's impossible to fail almost. That's why a guy like Elon Musk with Tesla, he's using all his genius and his intelligence and he's focusing it, and he's like, that's why it's just become a hugely successful thing. That's why Steve Jobs did it like that. That's why you do it, because you're enjoying what you're doing and it's shining through. You're not just some get rich quick guy,
They say that today's quote was on my screensaver was time wasted doing something you enjoy is not time wasted. And when people ask me, like, I'm pretty open now about how much money I make and from what. I've been doing these income reports for the last couple of months, and people ask, like, is it worth writing a book? And I openly tell them, I'm like, well, I make pretty good money for my book. I probably make $1,000 a month selling my books, but I make 5 times that much on my actual stores. And is it what the amount of hours I put in the book versus the amount of hours I put in the store? It cost per hour. The book was not worth it. But I loved doing it, and it was something I really enjoyed. It's something that I would write when I was on an airplane or I didn't have Wi-Fi, and it was something that I would do to unwind at the end of the day after I did my normal work. So to me, it wasn't work at all.
I agree. There's another expression: "He who enjoys what he does never works a day in his life." And we've spoken about this, I think, on the first show. One of the reasons I was looking for the shortcut like you is because I was just, for some reason, I always equated work with drudgery. Right? I always thought of work as like a horrible, boring, monotonous thing that you just did because you had to make a buck, or you just did because someone told you to. And it was only when I made that mental shift and realized that I actually enjoy working hard. I said this to you once. I think we were in that co-working space. I enjoy working hard. It's a lot of fun, but it's pretty much only when I'm doing something that I believe in, or something that fits into the part of my grander vision. And
it's nice that you say the grander vision, because me and Larissa have been doing a 30-day new store challenge, which is actually on the pin board behind my head. Here in our apartment. I mean, Larissa was basically saying, she's like, look, I want the freedom of being able to travel and run an online business and be able to, to be wherever I am. And that part of it I enjoy. The actual, because when we were picking a niche for our new online store, she made a list of like 20 or 30 things, and we went through them, kind of, see what would fit Anton's criteria, but also make sure there's no one else in the course selling that product because we don't want to compete, all these things. And I told her, the very first thing I told her, I said, look, don't get totally emotionally attached to any niche. And, this is something that actually Larissa wanted to tell your buddy who's thinking about doing the same thing, is even though he loves music and he loves musical production and instruments, if that niche doesn't fit, it just doesn't fit the numbers, and then don't do it. Even though you love it and you're passionate about it, you can be passionate about something. You can be passionate about building the actual business itself, and not necessarily the niche, because that, I think, kind of blinds a lot of people as well.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
But I think what I was gonna say was, we've been working our butts off this last week. So if you guys listen to the last 2 episodes, we've been in Borneo for the last 3 weeks, and we didn't really have Wi-Fi. We didn't really have access to anything. So we kind of just, it was just a long vacation. And for the last 5 days, we've been waking up every day at 5:30 in the morning to go to Pun Space, the co-working space. And we've been working nonstop on our stores until 4 o'clock every day. So it's, like 9-hour days every day, but we've been loving it.
Yeah, good for you, man.
And it's because we know that by building this next store, we're gonna have enough income so we can travel, we can do the other things that we like doing. So to us, that's what's exciting about it.
That's great, Johnny. Good for you, man. It's such a cool thing to see you successful. We always joke whenever I whenever we see each other, wherever we've been all over the world, and we bump into each other, I know we always laugh about how back in the day, what was it, 5 years ago that I met you? We pretty much knew a lot of this stuff already. We just weren't implementing it.
Yeah.
Right?
So the way I met Nick was he was teaching a jiu-jitsu seminar at Tiger Muay Thai down in Phuket. And afterwards, I went up to him and I said, hey, thanks for teaching the class. I wanted to tell you that you look like my favorite author. And at that time, it was Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, I remember that. And I was like, yeah, I know who Tim Ferriss is. I was like, and just as I said to you last night, you and I read that book, or I know I read that book literally a week after it came out, before it was super popular and famous. And the funny thing was, you looked at my site then and you told me a bunch of things about it, because you were a little bit further ahead. You had a bit deeper understanding of how blogs work and things like that, and you gave me some good tips on it. And that was actually probably the start of the process of me. It started me thinking about making this a bit more professional and a potential revenue source for me. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I mean, 5 years ago, if we had just decided, hey, let's actually make money from these blogs, these websites, and not just do it as a hobby, we would have been so much further along.
Yeah, but this is something I always refer to whenever I get that feeling, when I'm presented with an opportunity and then that little negative voice says, oh, this would have been great if you did it 5 years ago, this would have been great if you did it 10 years ago. And it's that Chinese expression, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, the second best time is now. and that has always stuck with me, because if I'm presented with an opportunity now and I think back and say, oh shit, I should have done that 5 years ago, I also know that the Nick 5 years from now, if I was speaking to him on the phone now, he'd say, don't be a fucking idiot, just do it now, just get started. So I keep that in my mind.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Because the worst, I mean, I'll say, to add to that, it would be the worst time to do something is 5 years from now.
Yeah, that is literally the worst time. Right.
So if there's something that you guys always wanted to do, just do it now.
Just do it. Starting is there's an expression.
Okay.
As you guys can pick up, I've read a lot of expressions. This one is, starting is half done. And I firmly believe that first step is, there's two parts of any project that are the most important. That's getting started and finishing it. Right? Everything else will happen. But you got to commit to yourself that A, you're going to start, and B, you're going to finish. All the middle stuff, it'll get done.
I like that a lot. So I don't want to just, give the people motivation to get started. I want to give people practical steps. So when you wrote your book, tell me, I mean, did you write it in Microsoft Word and Google Drive? I mean, like what were the actual steps?
So this was the best piece of advice I can give about pretty much any project, and writing a book in particular, is the first thing is to start with the end in mind, right? And work backwards. So I wanted a book being sold online, generating me passive income, and a few other characteristic or variables I wanted checked. So that was the end that I started in mind. And then what I did is, it's just like, remember when you were a kid and you were making a jigsaw puzzle, you'd always put the edges in first, right? You'd do the edges first and then fill in the middle. And I did the same thing with the book. I first wrote out the table of contents. I actually wrote the introduction and I wrote the conclusion and then the table of contents, and then I just fleshed it out. And so I basically created a skeleton and hung the meat off the bones. And I think that is probably the best way I have found to complete any project. So maybe what you could do, let's say you wanted to start a drop shipping site selling, I don't know, dog toys. You could literally mock up the front page of the site. So nothing in the background, no architecture behind it. Just take Photoshop or whatever and copy
some pen and paper.
Just a pen and pen, even a pen and paper. That's so right. And just draw. This is what I want my site to look like. And then work backwards, and you find out, what do I need to do this? And you fill in the gaps, and you hang the meat off the bones. And sooner or later, one day your project's complete.
I absolutely agree, because at the end of the day, it almost doesn't matter what you use. So there's a lot of writers that will use like typewriters still, or they'll use like bar napkins. And the fact is, those are probably the worst things you could do. There's no backup on it. There's no security. You probably can't. It's not the most efficient use of their time, but it gets it done. A lot of people don't know this, but I wrote Life Changes Quick in Notepad.
No way.
Yeah. And the reason why I did that is I don't have Microsoft Word on my computer. I don't even have whatever the free Mac one is. And I didn't have internet access a lot of the times I was writing, because a lot of times I was writing it was on a plane or something. So I literally would make a new note saying chapter 3, and I would write a chapter in Notepad. And when it was all done, I transferred it into a Google Doc, completely unformatted, had someone else, format the whole thing, spell check it, grammar check it. And then I reread the whole thing, as if I was going to be someone reading for the first time. And I just asked myself, does this make any logical sense?
Okay.
I moved some of the chapters around. I think I even deleted 1 or 2 chapters. That's
the editing process. I mean, it's like you can even hire professional people to do that for you,
Yeah, definitely. But at the end of the day, as long, one day it was just done. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And you had a lot of fun doing it, right?
I loved it. Yeah, it was really enjoyable. As far as the platforms, because there are going to be these little decisions to make. Why did you choose Clickbank over, let's say, Amazon? So for those who don't know what Clickbank is, it's a digital marketplace where you can
There's actually quite a few things. I think Clickbank you could describe it as a payment processor, and a digital marketplace and an affiliate platform, and probably a couple of other things as well, which I can't think of now. But the reason I chose Clickbank instead of Amazon is because I just found the fact that Amazon took 70% of the revenue above. If you charge more, if you charge more than $10, it takes 70%, and I just found that was completely unacceptable to me. And another reason I wanted to use Clickbank is, as I said, I developed quite a strong jiu-jitsu network. I knew a lot of website owners who had successful jiu-jitsu forums and blogs and things like that. And Clickbank just provided me with the best, easiest to integrate affiliate system, and that's why I chose it. It wasn't without its issues, but I'm pretty sure if I'd chosen something else, it would have had a number of other challenges. And I like working with Clickbank. I've used it for another one of my products. I don't really see any new reason to change right now. That may be different in the future, but right now I enjoy using it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that if I had put my first book, 12 Weeks in Thailand, onto Clickbank, and instead of calling it 12 Weeks in Thailand and having it just be kind of a general life guide, if I really just had it be a guide to Muay Thai and a guide to 2 different gyms in Thailand, I could have left it at the $37 price point, which is what it originally was at, and the same amount of people bought it at $37 as they are buying it now at $7.99.
What's to stop you from changing it, though?
The only thing stopping me from changing it is, first, it's such a small part of my actual total income now that it's not part of my grand picture. Okay. I think that I could make some more money from it, and I would say, if I really spend a month, rebranding it, rewriting some of it, and it'll be another $500 a month I would make. Which, if you asked me a year ago, I would have done it in a heartbeat. Yeah. Because when I met Nick, when I hung out with Nick last time in Chiang Mai.
No, this wasn't the last time. This was a while back. It was like almost 2 years ago.
Was it a year and a half ago?
Yeah, maybe even a little bit longer than that. Yeah.
I was living in basically a Thai prison cell.
Yeah, I remember last night at dinner, it was really funny because Johnny said to me, "Nick, why didn't you tell me I couldn't live like that?" It was pretty bad.
And so if you asked me then, 100% I would have done it. But now, it's not part of my grand picture. I'd rather not make money from that book and have free time to work on other things that that do kind of fit in my goals and align myself. But I would say the main reason, honestly, why I leave it at $9 or whatever it is I want to get that book into as many people's hands as possible. I would never sell it for 99 cents or give it away because people don't value things that they get for free. And this, studies have shown that books that downloaded for free never get read. Versus if you pay $5 or $10 for a book, you will read that book. I have never bought a book for more than $7 and not read it.
Interesting.
But I've downloaded hundreds of books that are sitting on my Kindle or my computer that have never been read.
That's very interesting. People just don't value what they get for free. It's just the nature of the game in pretty much every sphere of life. It's what I've noticed. And I also noticed it's the customers who give you the most grief about paying for your stuff or paying the high price point are always the ones that are the most difficult and that you earn the least money from. I know there was a guy who emailed me a while back saying, this is not a book, it's a PDF, right? I don't feel happy about this. So I emailed him back saying, my friend, this is actually a book and it's an electronic book and it's in a PDF format. It's 260 pages or whatever the page count is. And then he sent me another email saying, I I'm still not happy because of this and this. And I just said, dude, I think here's your money back. I think you and I should just go our separate ways, because I don't want people like that. I don't need that. There might have been a time when I really needed that guy's $40 really badly, but it's not now. I want people who are happy to pay for quality information because I know it's quality information. I put my heart and soul into this. So I just trying to filter out people who complain about paying X amount. I don't want those customers.
All right. So speaking of those high quality customers, high value customers, so for my e-commerce stores, I don't have any products less than $300. And the majority of my products are over $500.
Wow.
And the reason I have that is because the few people who have ever bought something in my store that was, $199.99, those people have given me so much headache that I've deleted those products off my line.
Wow.
And I'd rather just not sell it because, first off, obviously the profit's not going to be as high on a $200 item as a $2,000 item, but also it takes literally the same amount of customer service, if not more. Mm-hmm. I mean, probably the only customer I've ever, really had to go back and forth and for more than one or two emails was a person buying a $200 product.
Yeah, of course.
And the person that I dealt with most recently this week, he had ordered a product that was, I think, like $1,500, and he needed a little bit of hand holding. He wanted, I had to talk to him on the phone once or twice and email him a few times. Mm-hmm. But he's always been polite. And I think it was yesterday or the day before. It was yesterday because that dinner we went to last night, I told Larissa that was my treat because we were celebrating. He reordered, and this time his order was $3,000.
Wow, that's cool.
And because he's an existing customer and he didn't use any coupons or anything, he basically just paid completely full price for the item. The profit on that order was $1,000.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Which is insane.
Yeah. And
I'd have to sell, I don't know, 50 $200 products to make $1,000. So I'd rather deal with this one guy that is grateful, he's a high value customer, than deal with 50 people.
Yeah, so true. You took the words out of my mouth. Yeah. I'd rather deal with $1,000 customer than $1,000 customers or $110 customers.
Well, that's so. Me and Larissa's new store that we're starting together, I think our cheapest product on there so far is $1,000.
Wow.
And it's a big gamble because there's a good chance that we'll literally make 0 sales, but we also have a chance where we'll make 1 sale a week, which will, with 4 customers a month spending over $1,000, that's actually enough to make it worth it.
My next jiu-jitsu product as well, which I've been planning for the last 7 or 8 months, and I'm going to be filming in December. It's going to be several $100s. And I mean, I have no qualms about charging that price because I know the quality of the product is going to be that good. And again, I'm also, it takes a lot of pressure off me because instead of needing to sell 2,000 copies, if I sell 200 copies, I can still make a decent income or decent return. I think higher priced products are not always, but I think they are the way to go for people like you and I, and maybe many of the listeners.
Yeah, but I would definitely say that starting with a mid-range, price point teaches you a lot. And
what's mid-range to you?
So I guess it really depends. So for like let's say e-commerce, like online store, anything less than $200 or $250, I actually consider like a cheaper low end product.
Oh wow, okay.
But it really depends on on what you're talking about, right? But so for me, if you don't want to talk apples and oranges, so let's say a book, okay, a Kindle book, a cheap Kindle book is something less than $5.
Wow, okay.
All right, like a $2.99 book or a $1.99 book or a free book is cheap. I would never, sell something that cheap because I don't want to deal with that. A mid-range book would be, let's say, $5 to $10, and then an expensive book would be, anything over, let's say, $15 or so. I think ideally, I would actually want to only sell things over $15. I think the only reason why I have my books for so cheap is because it's on Amazon and I don't have to deal with it anyways.
Yeah, I get it. You need such huge volumes when you're selling things for low margins, and sometimes the business model doesn't support that. I don't know that there are a million people out there that are going to buy my $300 or $400 jiu-jitsu DVD. It's unlikely. Yeah.
But I do have my books on another platform called eJunkie, which is kind of like Clickbank, but crappier. I mean, that's kind of just what it is. But the reason why I have it on there is you'll be surprised how many people in the world don't have a Kindle or don't want to download that Kindle app. They just want the PDF.
Interesting.
So as many people that complain about your book being in a PDF format, I have just as many people who complain about having my book in Kindle format. So they want a PDF.
Can't please everyone, eh?
Yeah, and you really can. I mean, and that's why I just give them options. You know, I have my book. There's a link, you know, on both my books saying, you know, download the PDF version. Mm-hmm. And I don't advertise those at all because I actually want people to buy it through Amazon just because it raises the ranking in it. Mm-hmm. And eventually, you know, I mean, my goal now is I would like to be on a bestsellers list.
Nice.
You know, whether it's New York Times or Amazon's top 100 or that's my goal. And it's not even about the money anymore because I can make money doing other things on the side with my stores, and with the book I can keep it low priced and just sell that volume. Mm-hmm. And I honestly don't even know why I want to be a bestseller, but it's my new goal. It's my new dream.
Good for you, my man. Good for you.
So I appreciate that. And I mean, life seriously changes quick. I mean, we're sitting here. How many countries have you been to since we saw each other exactly 1 year ago?
A lot, bro. I'd say.
Like, where have you been?
Australia, England, France, Ireland, Japan, Thailand, pretty much the coast to coast United States, South Africa, Peru. Was that? No, Peru was a little bit before that. I've traveled a lot, man, and most of the places I've just listed, I've been multiple times in that space of time. So yeah, it's been intense.
And a huge part of it, or the majority of that, of the income, or you know, of the cost of that, I've came directly from this book.
You mean it's covered much of the cost?
Yeah.
Yeah, a decent chunk. And I mean, it's synergistic because I teach jiu-jitsu seminars where I go, and then people come to the seminars because they've read the book, and then people buy the book because they've come to the seminar. So it's they work off each other. Yeah.
And congratulations for that.
Thank you, my brother. You definitely played a role in the whole thing, seeing how well you were doing as well.
Well, buddy, you know, to everybody's success, because success is one of those things that is not finite. And the people that think it is, those people normally don't get ahead in life. Mm. But the people that realize that success truly is abundant and everybody can have it, those are people that are going to do well.
Mm-hmm. It's reminds me of yet another expression, last one for today. A spiritual teacher said, happiness shared is happiness doubled. And I think it's the same with success. Success shared is success sometimes more than doubled. You know, it's only the people who have small minds and who are mean and miserable who like try to bite and hoard and grab and keep as much for themselves. I don't want to be that kind of person. No thanks.
So if you guys don't want to be that kind of person, I really honestly think that everyone who's even remotely interested in jiu-jitsu or in Nick to read the book, it's the Blackbelt Blueprint. Check out his podcast as well.
Yeah, thejourneypodcast.com.
Or find it on iTunes.
Yes.
Subscribe to that.
Yeah, The Journey. You type in The Journey Podcast in iTunes and you'll find it.
Okay, very cool. And if you want to read the book, I'll link to it in the episode show notes. This is episode 57. Or you can go to my old Muay Thai blog, myfightcamp.com, and there's a review of his book, and I'll have a link to it as well. And if you haven't read Life Changes Quick, please do so. I just updated the cover. I don't know if anyone follows me on Facebook or on Twitter, but... really excited to have a new cover. Appreciate that.
That's really great.
I took my face off of it, which was kind of
and sales are going to go down now.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I think that everyone who listens to the podcast or reads my blog has already bought the book.
Okay.
So now the people, the new people, they might not recognize me, or they might not know who I am, but they recognize the words "Life Changes Quick."
Interesting.
So that's why we made the move. So thank you guys so much for spreading the word about the book, for listening to the podcast, and for leaving the nice reviews, because that's really what bumps it all up. And I'll see you guys next week. Nick, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Johnny.
Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.